So the NBA has been along for a very, very long time. When a league is around for so long, there are great players who come and go. And today we're going to be talking about my top 10 list of the best NBA players ever. Now we did a video talking about my personal top 10 best players in the league from a month ago, but that video is already dated. But this list doesn't really get dated other than my opinions change it, but the stats and everything and watching them, nothing changes other than there's one active player on here, and I think you can already guess who it is. But this list, most of these players are retired, and this is my personal opinion, so don't flame me in the comments because this is a very debatable topic. Everyone has their own top 10 list. This is just mine, and I have a lot of reasonings for different choices, so I'm going to tell you the reasonings, I'm going to tell you some stats, and stuff like that. So without further ado, let's begin with number 10. At number 10, we have Larry Bird, who I think is the 10th best NBA player of all time. He's a 3-time champion, 3-time MVP, 3 straight MVPs actually, 12-time All-Star, and he was on the first team All-NBA 9 times. Now, Larry Bird, the best white player to ever play the game. I'd say Steve Nash is also up there, John Stockton, but Larry Bird is the best white player to ever play the game. And if you just look at his talent, he made some defensive teams. He was just a very tall, good shooter. He won the three-point contest 3 times, and he also was a very great three-point shooter, but he didn't attempt a lot of three-pointers. The reason Larry Bird isn't higher up on this list is if he played in today's NBA, obviously he's not very athletic and at all. That's probably one of the weakest points of his game, but his shooting, he's one of the best shooters of all time, I'd say. Top 10 for sure. And if he was in today's NBA, where they take more threes, because when he was first in the NBA, he kind of, not really started it, but he was at the very beginning of when the three-point line was first introduced. And, he didn't take a lot of threes back then, but when he shot them, he made them, obviously, which shows. So that's why he's at number 10. Hakeem was an honorable mention, but if you want me to name top 50, top 30 players, because there were a lot of honorable mentions off the list. It's hard to pick just 10, so if you want me to do that later, then let me know. But number 10, in my opinion, Larry Bird, a Celtics legend. Coming in at number 9 is Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain. Now, I debated between Wilt and Larry Bird for a bit, but I decided to go with Wilt because of a couple things. First of all, he is one of the best athletes we have ever seen. If you look at all the stories of him, how he could dunk on a 12-foot net, how he could bench lift like 600 pounds, he had the greatest vertical of all time. He is just a crazy athlete, and obviously his era really helps outline it. But even if you put him in today's era, he's still one of the most athletic players we've ever seen. He is probably the most athletic and most dominant player we have ever seen. Now, is era a part of this? Probably. That's why he's not higher up on this list. But he is a 2-time NBA champion, 4-time MVP, 13-time All-Star, 7-time first team, 7-time scoring champ, and 11-time rebounding champ. Obviously, the era plays a big part in these stats, but still just raw talent. I really want to see what he would be like in today's NBA because it would end some debates. But in terms of pure talent, he's the most dominant player of all time in terms of how he played and where he played in the time period. 4-time MVP. He once averaged 50 in a season. So he's just an incredible NBA player, and he's number 9 on my list. Coming at number 8, this one was very tough. I was deciding between number 8 and number 7 for a long time, tossing and turning. But number 8, I finally decided to settle with number 8 being Bill Russell. Obviously, he has won the most rings in NBA history ever as a singular player. He's won 11 of them. He is also a 5-time MVP, 12-time All-Star, 3rd-time All-NBA first team only, and 4-time rebounding champ. Now, if you look at these numbers, very impressive. 5-time MVP, 11-time champ, 12-time All-Star. Very impressive numbers. But if you look deeper in his stats, obviously he had a great team around him, which helped into his stats. I'm not for sure how many finals MVPs he had exactly, but he didn't have too many. He had Havlicek on his team. I'm pretty sure he had Bob Cousy on his team. So obviously that plays a role into where he's placed. He was also in the Wilt Chamberlain era, which, it's Wilt, so it's the 50s and 60s. So that's another reason that he's not higher on this list. And also, longevity. He didn't have a very long career. So if he would have played a longer career, if he would have scored more, and if he would have played in a different era, he could probably be way higher on this list. Some people even have him number 1, number 2, and number 3 on this list. But I found a really interesting stat that also puts things into perspective. He's played like 1,123-ish NBA games. It's something crazy like that. And he's only had 16 games where he scored above 30 points per game. He only had 16 games where he only scored above 30 points in that game. That's just crazy. You can't put him... I mean, obviously, he's a really good defender, a really good rebounder, a really good winner. But you also have to be able to score the basketball too, and that's why he's not higher up on this list. Coming in at number 7 is, in my personal opinion, the best power forward of all time. We got Timmy D. Duncan. Now, he is a 5-time NBA champion, 2-time MVP, 15-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA first team, and he's been an all-defensive team 15 times. I think he's been on the first team 8 times, second team 7 times, which is just crazy numbers. Obviously, he was just one of the best winners of all time. I think that there's a stat that he has more wins total than the whole Minnesota Timberwolves franchise, which either shows you something good about Tim Duncan or shows you something bad about the Timberwolves. But yeah, one of the most winningest players of all time. 5 championships, him and Popovich. That was just a great duo there. Obviously being coached by one of the best coaches of all time helps you. But Tim Duncan, great NBA player. He was almost a swimmer. And, 2-time MVP, 15-time All-Star. He is undoubtedly a top 10 player in the NBA, in my opinion. It just depends about where, and I finally settled for putting him at number 7, which I think is an appropriate spot for Mr. Fundamentals. This one was also a tough one, but at number 6, I decided to settle with Shaquille O'Neal. He's a 4-time NBA champion, 1-time MVP, 15-time All-Star, 8-time All-NBA first team, and a 2-time scoring champion. Now, why isn't he higher up on this list? Obviously, he is one of the most dominant players of all time, probably top 3. No one could really stop him. The only thing that could stop him was the free throw line. Free throws, obviously, he wasn't a good free throw shooter, but I seen a video. I'm not sure who it was by or where, how long ago I seen it, but there was a video that, like, what if Shaq was an amazing free throw shooter, and basically showed his career, and they did, like, all this math if he shot, like, 90% from the free throw line, and it did some difference to his numbers, but besides that, he's a 4-time champ, 3 times with the Lakers, 1 time with the Miami Heat. The reason he's not up higher is because I think the longevity of his career is one of them. He was really good for the Lakers and the Magic. The Heat, he was good for a little bit, and then just the Suns and the Celtics and the Cavs, those weren't really good phases for him. That was chubby Shaq, Magic Shaq was just like the big athletic Shaq, there's the Lakers, Heat Shaq, that was just a dominant Shaq, and then you got the chubby Shaq, so if he would have stayed in his prime longer and have a longer career, he probably would have been higher up on this list. There's nothing really else. I mean, he didn't make as many all-NBA defensive teams as he probably could have, but he's won MVP, 4-time champion. He's had a pretty good career, and he's undoubtedly a top 10 NBA player of all time, and probably one of the best big men of all time. Coming in at number 5 is an NBA icon. It's Kobe Bryant. Some people don't even have him in the top 10 list because they're basketball nerds, and they just look at stats and advanced stats, but I don't really like to look at that. If you ask any NBA player, they'll put Kobe most likely in the top 3, but for sure in the top 10. But some of these people, they leave Kobe Bryant out of their top 10 list. Why? Obviously the stats, he's a ball hog, but, those are just not really stereotypes, but they're not completely true. I mean, there's the memes and all that, but I still think that Kobe Bryant is a top 5 NBA player of all time. He's a 5-time NBA champion, obviously 3 times with Shaq, 2 times with Pau Gasol. He's won an MVP. Some people can argue that he should have won more because Steve Nash stole some of his MVPs. I don't really know. He's an 18-time All-Star, which I think is the second most All-Star teams. Yeah, second most All-Star teams out of a player ever. 11 times on the All-NBA first team. 2 times scoring champion. Kobe is one of the best scorers of all time. One of the best shot creators. He also this was the real deal breaker. I don't know this either, 12 times on the All-Defensive team. 12 times he was on an all-defensive team. That's just crazy. I mean, Kobe, underrated defender, especially in his prime with those number 8 days, I think he's been a steal leader a couple times, I'm pretty sure. But the Black Mamba, one of the most influential players in the game today, and just one of the best basketball players the NBA has ever seen. Coming at number 4 is the man in the front office of the Los Angeles Lakers right now. No, it's not LeBron. It's Magic Johnson. He is a 5-time NBA champion, 3-time MVP, 12-time All-Star. He's been on the All-NBA first team 9 different times, and the assist leader, number 4. Obviously, one of the best passers, one of the best playmakers of all time. He was also very dominant because he was a 6'8", 6'9" point guard. And at the time, that was unheard of. So he kind of started the wave of the big ball handlers. You know, we see Ben Simmons, LeBron, Giannis, all these great ball handlers who are extremely tall, which causes a big mismatch. Magic Johnson can literally play any position. He played the center position at one point. And the reason holding him back is the longevity of his career. He was forced to retire because of AIDS. But rest up Magic. Well, he's not dead, but rest up Magic Johnson. And hopefully he could get the Lakers front office together, but I don't think that he should be in a position running that team anytime soon. But regardless of that, amazing basketball player, top 5 basketball player of all time in my opinion, and the best point guard in the NBA ever. Coming in at number 3, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He has one of the best resumes in NBA history, and I'm about to tell you some. 6-time champion, 6-time MVP, 19-time All-Star, 10 times on the All-NBA first team, 2-time scoring champ, and he is the leading scorer in points total ever. He is the leading scorer in points, and he's just a dominant player. There's not much I can say about him. His resume speaks for himself. 6-time NBA champion, that's amazing. 6-time MVP, amazing. 19-time All-Star, the most ever, amazing. You know, a 10-time All-NBA first team, amazing. 2-time scoring champ, amazing. Leading scorer ever, amazing. Now, someone on this list might surpass him, but, I mean, you probably all know who it is, but we'll have to see. Kareem, one of the best, I mean, he is the best center of all time in my opinion, and he is an underrated, just dominant player. You know, he was 7'1", and he's just an absolute monster. You know, he started the sky hook. You know, that was a really good move. It was a very influential move. It's one of the most signature moves of all time, other than Dirk's fadeaway, probably. I'd say that that's pretty much up there. And, you know, Kareem, amazing player, top 3 player in my opinion, but there's 2 players ahead of him, and I'm about to tell you who they are. Coming in at number 2, it's an active player. It's LeBron James. Lots of people like to hate on LeBron, but he's the best basketball player I've ever seen play personally. And he is, in my opinion, the second best NBA player of all time. Obviously, it's easy to hate on him right now because the Lakers haven't been doing good, and there's always going to be big LeBron haters. But regardless, he's number 2 on my all-time list. He's a 3-time NBA champion, 4-time MVP. Some people argue that he should have more MVPs. And he's got snubbed a couple times, but he's a 15-time All-Star, and that number is still probably going to grow. He might get to 16, 17. We don't know how he's going to bounce back. I hope he bounces back stronger than ever for his upcoming seasons with the Lakers. You know, he was a 1-time scoring champion, 15-time All-Star, I already mentioned, and 12-time All-NBA first team. What's holding him back is probably defense. When LeBron locks in on defense, you know, he locks in on defense. But, you know, people say that LeBron lacks the clutch gene. I've seen him hit a lot of clutch shots, but what's holding him back is probably the championships. And, you know, if you want me to make a video on if the Warriors ruin LeBron's legacy, you can let me know. But LeBron, he just isn't as much as a winner of all these other guys. Actually, on this list, he is tied for last for NBA total champions. He's tied with Larry Bird, and he's also tied with Magic Johnson. So, you know, only 3 championships. That's still pretty good, though. And some people are calling him the GOAT. Some people say that he's not the GOAT. You know, the GOAT argument is going to be a strong argument for a long time, but I don't really think it's much of an argument. LeBron is an amazing, amazing player, but I think that the number 1 player in the NBA is still ahead of him. You all seen it coming. I think that the best NBA player of all time in the whole history of the National Basketball Association is Michael Jordan. Obviously, one of the biggest influencers of the game ever. 6-time champion, 5-time MVP, 14-time All-Star, Defensive Player of the Year, and 10-time scoring champion, and a 10-time All-NBA first team. One of the best scorers we've ever seen. One of the best, well, not one of the best, well, one of the best perimeter defenders we've ever seen. One of the best defenders from a shooting guard. You know, he's made a lot of all defensive teams. He's one of the winningest players we've ever seen, and he is the best player we have ever seen. The only thing that people bring up that LeBron has that Michael Jordan doesn't is probably the playmaking. Michael Jordan wasn't a sludge playmaker by any means, but he wasn't an elite playmaker. But regardless, amazing defensive ability, amazing scoring ability, amazing leadership ability. There's been some problems with, like, his personality, and he's not a good owner, which he isn't for the Charlotte Hornets right now. And he also wasn't a good coach, or no, not a good front office guy when he was with the Wizards, and they drafted Kwame Brown. That was just a whole disaster. disaster. His personality might not have been the best. He might have had a gambling problem. That might have been the flu game, was just a hangover. But regardless, Michael Jordan, in my opinion, is the best player to ever pick up a basketball. Thank you for listening. I know that this was a very controversial video, but I want you to leave your list down in the comment section below and just get into some friendly debates, not really anything too aggressive. I just want to know your guys' lists and to agree with mine or disagree, but just do that all respectfully in the comment section below. I'll see you in the next one. Take care and goodbye.